I I have still so much to do and still so much to accomplish that I didn't even realize I wanted to accomplish. I'm unfolding things that I love to do and things that I'm actually good at this stage of life, and I hope that continues until I no longer continue.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Hassiem Mohammed, and you are listening to The Actor's Instrument, where we discuss the essential qualities you need to stand out in the entertainment industry. Whether it's that big birthday coming up, or a Facebook reminder letting you know that you graduated 10 or 20 years ago, or seeing a peer book a life changing role, it's so easy to feel like we're running out of time as actors. But this week's guest on The Actor's Instrument didn't even start drama school until she was 33. And it wasn't until a few years after that she would book her first legit role in a feature film. Lana Young, born and raised on the island of Bermuda, is an actor, producer, and director. She's known for her guest star appearances on shows like The Blacklist, Bull, and WandaVision, as well as appearances in Netflix's A Jasmine's Blues and Antoine Fuqua's Southpaw. Lana was also nominated for an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Ensemble Cast in a Motion Picture in 2023. Lana, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Hassiem, thanks for having me. Really excited. And
Absolutely.
Monkey,
Hey, monkey.
Monkey the scene stealer, always.
I love it. This is our first time a, a non-human guest. Um, Welcome, monkey.
Typical for Monkey to be stealing the scene again.
Oh, this is great. On YouTube, our views are going to be like through the roof. This is perfect.
His favorite time to appear is while I'm recording self-tapes
Oh my goodness.
with the little paw coming into the frame.
Of course, I have to lock my dog and our cat in another room because if not, well, they're not gonna like get in my face, but you'll just hear their little pitter patters because we have
Yeah, yeah,
all wood
yeah.
floors and you just hear.
Oh, the
Um,
pitter-patters.
but I'm so glad to have you and Monkey here on the show today.
Thank
Now,
you.
you just finished wrapping a feature film for Lifetime, correct?
Yes, I did. Yep, 2 weeks of bliss.
How was it?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, West Virginia speaks for itself, but it's very picturesque and, and I didn't have a lot of downtime, so, I was really excited to be I mean, as an actor, to have the time to really connect with people, not just a one and done, step in, do the role, and leave. I got time to really bond with the cast and the production crew who were phenomenal. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really good one too. It's based on a true story, based on the a true story of a serial killer.
Oh, those are my favorites.
I
I
know.
love a good true crime, you know what I'm
Me
saying?
too.
My favorite
I know.
show of all time is Criminal Minds, which is all about serial killers, so
Do you ever watch I mean, I'm embarrassed to kinda say it, but I like those shows like Signs of a Psychopath. I mean, I was a psych major, so I love human behavior.
ah.
I'm like,
Psych was
what is
also a huge I remember when I was in high school, I was like, "Man, if this acting thing doesn't work out, I think I'd like to become a forensic psychologist."
same, like
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Quantico.
Yeah, exactly, like, just like at
Except I
Quantico.
Right? Except I was Bermudian, and I was like, I can't go there, I'm not American." So that was, like, one of my first obstacles of all my dreams being dashed by being on a tiny island.
Well, look at you now, you're in the movie, you're telling the story, you made it.
Yes.
Um
Yes.
Was there anything particular about the, like, process of working on the film that, maybe you'd like to share? I know you said it was pretty fast, yeah?
It was, yeah, it was really fast, and I think most of the people were brought on pretty late. It's interesting because I really prefer to spend time building the character first, doing all the character prep, the analysis, understanding who I am in the role. Sorry, monkey. See, he's trying to steal the scene. Who I am in the role. What am I doing? What do I want? All the questions, all the actor questions, and then memorize because for me that makes more sense. It's more. The lines become more retainable, and they're within a context, so they're easier to learn for me. I didn't have as much of a luxury of time to do a lot of that prep, so I was kind of doing both at the same time. But what I discovered was that it really, being down to the wire really kind of lit my brain up. and it really lit the process up, and, I was able to deliver. So it just goes to show that, we're always learning, what we're capable of. It's never too late to learn, what we're capable of, and, I'm really happy with how it all worked out, and they were really happy with my work too, which is really the most important thing.
Absolutely. I agree. Sometimes having that pace and that time crunch puts a little pressure on, and you're surprised at what can happen. A little pressure goes a long
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, it really, really makes you focus and really be in the moment, which, we know is the best way to get the most grounded performance is to really solidly be right in that moment. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, and I
Yeah.
forgot to say to our listeners, so Lana has insisted that she interview me because no one's interviewed me on the show before, out of our 60 something episodes at this point. So this is going to be part one of this conversation with Lana. Part two, we're going to flip the script and Lana's going to ask me a few questions.
Can't wait.
I know I'm from South Carolina, so you don't talk to women about their age. I mentioned in the intro to this episode that you didn't start drama school until you were 33, which totally took me by surprise. Um, I mean, by now you have a ton of experience, but I was surprised to read that. Why so late?
Well, Hassiem, a part of that was I didn't move to the States until I was 28. So I was born and raised in Bermuda, and for those of you who don't know what Bermuda is, it's a small island, 21 square mile island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Absolutely beautiful. Um, Actually, the closest land is North Carolina. That's about 600 or 700 miles away from Bermuda. We're sort of right in the middle of the Atlantic there. So even though acting has always been my dream, um, and I knew kind of deep, deep down that somehow it would happen. I just didn't know what that would look like yet. Ended up having to take a career that was feasible in Bermuda, which is either, something in finance or banking or real estate or, doctor, lawyer, hospitality. I did a little bit of all of that actually. Um, wasn't until I was 28 that I was dating an American and he wanted to marry me and invited me to move to Boston with him. And I made my way to Boston and, still went back into the corporate world, still had not gotten into my brain, like, acting as a career, right? Because 'Cause I'm still thinking as a Bermudian.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I only mean in the sense of I'm a big fish in a little pond, but now I'm in America, right?
Mhm.
And so I started to dip my toe in local productions, like just amateur productions, and I kept getting cast in plays and stuff like that, and I thought, "Oh my god, I'm a contender in America." And then and then, I got an opportunity to audition for a TV film called Killer Flood: The Day the Dam Broke, and, no kidding, that was the full name, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I was 32, and I went into the room, and I looked at the camera and these people sitting at a desk, and I said, "Do I do it into the camera? Do I do it?" And they explained
Wow.
how I talk to the reader and everything, and I booked this role with Bruce Boxleitner, who was from, Scarecrow Mrs. King back in the day.
Wow.
And that's what gave me the validation to f or actually just gave me, uh, the vision that this was possible. Like, I'm a contender in this country. I need to start picking up these little universal breadcrumbs that keep being put in my path.
Yeah.
And after doing that, I had the courage to apply for this drama school, arts education school in London, which is a very rigorous full day audition, and people are sent home halfway through the day. I flew to London to do it and everything. And I was the second oldest in my class. Everyone was in their early 20s. But that's how the journey began. And that's why so late.
Well, that's reasonable. I guess you literally weren't here. um, that was wow. What a what's the word? Earnest beginning. You're like, oh, who do I talk to in this audition? Um, wow.
Ask the questions, ask the questions.
But
Absolutely.
now I feel, the clock is kind of ticking down to my 30th birthday. I turned 30 this year. And there are some goals that I've yet to accomplish for my career. And it
Mhm.
kind of feels like time is running out. So
Mhm.
as someone who started their career later in life, what advice would you have for folks who feel like time is not on their side?
Mhm. I love this question, and I love talking about it any chance I get because I want people like you to feel really good about where you are in your life. And the first thing that I share is that acting and actually being a creative is a lifelong journey. So you can immediately take that pressure off, is time running out? Because time will only run out when you die.
When you run out.
When you run out is
Time
when
for
time runs out, okay? And that all of a sudden changes the journey, doesn't it? It becomes something about more about the unfolding and the excitement of the unknown and being aware when an opportunity comes that might not it seem like it's on the path that you've determined for yourself, but actually is a very important detour. And I've had a couple of those in my journey, and I love to look backwards and connect the dots. Like if that seemingly at the time failure hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have been available or possible. And that's why I don't like to look at anything as a failure or anything as something that's just not growth or a learning moment or a detour that takes us in a direction that we were supposed to go in, but we may not have been aware of.
I really
And
like that.
30s, by the way, was an excellent decade.
Now, I mean, and honestly, I'm one of those people who I'm it's one of those things that, like, I'm very much an optimist, so it's not like I'm like, "Oh, no, doom and gloom," but
Yeah.
it's wrestling with this piece of being so goal-oriented,
Yeah.
and, whenever science says that when you set goals, you should put a time limit on them. And we're
Yeah.
we're in this business where so much is outside of your control. It's not that you won't achieve the goal ever, but when you achieve it, is so outside of your control. Like when you book that first guest star or series regular or off Broadway or Broadway debut, like that's so outside of our control. So it can be challenging at times to
Yes.
set
But what
goals, which we know we need to do, and
Yeah.
then relinquish that control piece of who knows when it's gonna happen.
Yep, you just said it. It's about relinquishing control and allowing the unfolding to happen and enjoy that ride. And I will say this, science is great in its place, and I love science and I love using it for my work, especially, obviously psychology and human behavior and understanding how we function as humans. But it's very important that we understand what we personally need in order to make our journey sustainable. And I think it's great to have goals, and I think that sometimes setting time limits on your goals is a mistake. And for that reason alone is that when you don't meet that goal, somehow you feel it is a failure. And really what that comes from is societal pressure on us. Like, what are you doing? What have you accomplished? Blah, blah, blah. But if we start internalizing success and making it personal and our own definition of what that looks like, then we start to see that the journey becomes way more enjoyable. And then we're open to those paths that we weren't expecting to appear, and we're happier to take those paths, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Staying open and
Yes,
not
we
taking
have
those
to.
as
Yeah.
failures along the way. Absolutely.
No. No, the only failure is not showing up. I really believe that. I get asked this question a lot, and that is like, what keeps you going? And what keeps me going is I I have still so much to do and still so much to accomplish that I didn't even realize I wanted to accomplish. I'm unfolding things that I love to do and things that I'm actually good at this stage of life, and I hope that continues until I no longer continue. Yeah.
Me too. Me
And
too.
look at you with this podcast. You're so good at it, and you're getting inspired by other people, and you're inspiring other people. I think the most important thing to realize is that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we are not aware of. And every time we show up, we are planting a seed that is germinating and growing. And even though we might not be able to physically see it, people are talking about you, they're talking about your auditions, your work. Everything is conspiring in your favor, and you just have to believe it.
Everything is conspiring in your favor. That's gonna be the title of this episode.
Yes.
Um, I love it. Okay, switching gears a little bit here. So you came from Bermuda.
Yes.
At one point, you were in Boston, London. I know you spent some time in LA, now in New York. How did you decide on New York?
You forgot Charlottesville in between Los Angeles.
Charlottesville. I did see that on your website, and yes, I did. Yeah, Charlottesville.
Well, This was one of those detours that I was talking about earlier that ended up being a real gift, and that is, when I moved to Los Angeles, I showed up at 35 as a mixed race brown girl, like, "Here I am," and it was crickets. It was like, "You're old, and what are you? Like, are you white? Are you black? Are you Latina? What are you?" And so at the time, it was very Caucasian and very young casting, or the casting was very race specific, which we're seeing a little bit about of that again, but that's another podcast. Um, so even though I booked my first TV show, Zoe 101, and I booked
Lana, I love
yes,
that show. I love that show. I Oh my goodness.
I was in Page at PCA. And you know what? Well, we won't get into that.
I'm
I
gonna
just
when we flip the script, Imma talk about so it will naturally come you don't have to think about it. I know already it's gonna come up. We'll get there. Okay.
okay. Well, no, it was exciting because it was my first time on a set, like proper TV set, and I just watched, I just learned, and I listened. I waited for directions, and I did it, and I was so excited for that episode to come out. And it was my back. I was having to like evacuate kids from a library, which was in killer flood. I had to evacuate people from the hospital. I was like, "Is this a theme?" And you couldn't see it was me because I was doing all my lines, and the camera was behind me. So I was like, "Ah, damn it."
Wow.
Um, but anyway, that was very exciting to have that IMDb credit, have that credit on my resume. And then I booked Beginners with Christopher Plummer and Ewan McGregor. So that was a real gift as well. And I got to work with those two. Um, but I actually wasn't very happy in LA, and I felt like it wasn't my time yet, or I just I couldn't find my place there.
Sure.
And I believe everything is about timing. Happiness and quality of life is really important to me for balance. And the man I was dating at the time, his sisters were living in Charlottesville, and I said, "Let's go live there." And we moved there. I bought a house in the country, and I started an acting school. And I called it Hollywood Theater Lab, teaching life skills through acting. It was a resounding success. Everyone loved it. I was so happy. I had a beautiful 5 years there. And then when that 5 years was up, I decided to get back in the saddle. And that's when I got Susan Walters at STW Talent in the Southeast, and immediately booked a recurring on The Vampire Diaries, Devious Mates, and Southpaw, all from Charlottesville.
Oh my g I'm always fascinated, and we just released an episode this week of an actor who lives Josh Inner, he's in Ohio. I'm always fascinated by actors who start building a career outside of one of the major hubs. I'm, like, fascinated by this.
Yeah. And it's possible, it's really possible. I really like would if anyone ever asks me for advice, I happily say, maybe start in your town, or a town that's closer that has some casting in it, some opportunities in it, and wait until New York or LA calls you, because it's really hard to start in these markets. It really is. But it was after Southpaw, Antoine Fuqua said to me, it was funny actually because everybody in that show, when I was asking where everyone was from, everyone was like, LA, New York, LA, New York. And I was like, Charlottesville. And Antoine said, you should be, and then what? What? Rewind selector. So Antoine Fuqua said, you do really well in New York. You should head to New York. So we wrapped that movie in August 2014, Hassiem, and I went back and I rented my house and I moved to New York in September the next month.
Wow.
And in 4 months of being here, I said, "I'm staying." And my renters wanted to buy my house. I sold my house and I started my life here 10 years ago.
Wow. That was the year, that was my that was the year I graduated from high school, twen
No
tw
kidding.
2014, yeah, so that fall, when you moved to New York, I moved to School of the Arts and started college. Yeah.
See, and I know there's a good story there too.
Oh,
So when it's
boy.
your turn, watch out.
Oh, man. What an amazing story. Now, I know something else okay, so you were in finance in Bermuda, and then you opened an acting school. Along the way, you've taken up mentorship, and I know that that's something that's super important to you. Another guest from our you're connected to a lot of people. Another guest from our show, Marshall Thurman, is a
Oh, yeah.
mentee. of yours. She speaks so highly of you and introduced us to each other. How did you get into mentorship and why is that so important to you?
Oh, I just love this question so much. It just immediately lights me up. I don't know. I've always had an innate desire to help people to see their greatness if they can't see it themselves. There's just something about that, like helping someone to be aware of their greatness. And then also kind of giving people the tools that I didn't have. Like there was no one there for me when I started. I didn't know anybody in this industry. I didn't know anything about this industry. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I like to think of them as learning moments. I had a lot of learning moments, and I just think if I can make someone's journey a little more streamlined, of course, you all have to, learn your own lessons. But if I can take the technical side of things and some of the perspective side of things and streamline that journey a little bit, why not? Why wouldn't I?
Mm,
You know?
mm.
Yeah. Paying it forward.
How thoughtful of you.
Well,
Um, Amazing.
it's purpose, right? It's just it gives me it fulfills my purpose, I feel like. It makes me feel good too, so maybe there's a little selfishness in there too, if that's selfish.
But listen, I mean, aren't we all aren't we all a little selfish? I remember when I was in high school, I had a teacher, he said something about being honorably selfish. And
Mm,
that's something I've really carried with me. It's like, no, sometimes you need to just do something for you. Sometimes you just need to worry about you. Sometimes you need to do for you. And
mhm.
nothing wrong with that. So
Yeah.
I think
So if mentoring makes me feel good, then, hey, there's no harm in that, right?
absolutely no harm, especially because you're doing something for someone else along the way. It's a win-win. I
Yeah.
think it's awesome. I think mentorship is so important. I know for me, mentorship has been a key part of my journey. I'm currently in a process working on a project that I booked because of a mentor who
Mm,
picked up the phone and called me and was like, "Hey, I'm directing this thing. Are you available?" And
amazing.
I was like, "Sure." And not to say that like, oh, if you have a mentor, you're going to book a bunch of work. Like that's not what it's about. That's just an example of how beneficial that relationship has been.
Absolutely. You just never know. You never know what doors open. Yeah.
All right, my final question for you. What is the defining quality that you bring to the table as a storyteller?
Mm. Whoa. Oh, God, that is a great question.
What makes Lana Young special as an actor?
I think my absolute presence and attention with the person I'm with and and my ability to really feel affected by what they're giving me and what I'm giving back to them. So my attention. Yeah, just being able to really be in the moment and really listen and be present with that person and have an exchange of feelings and moments for real in that moment of a scene or however the story is being told.
That's amazing. I think focus is, I mean, that's something that I am literally currently working on. I read a book that this is the third time we've spoken about this book on the show. Guys, if you haven't gotten it yet, The Invisible Actor, you must get it.
True.
Um, and one of the strategies that the author speaks about is focus. And he's from Japan. And he's like, one thing that American actors really struggle with is the ability to do one thing at a time,
Mm,
one task. He's like, if you're washing dishes, can you just wash the dishes
right.
without like putting on a podcast or watching a YouTube video? Like,
You just be present.
right. If you're brushing your teeth, can you just brush your teeth? If you're, as you said, in front of another person on stage or on camera, can you just be with them? So I think that's an amazing trait to have. And it's no surprise that you've been so successful. Um, Lana,
I I
yeah, go
I
ahead.
do wanna add one thing, Hasim, if I may, only only because you did such a good job at bringing this out and talking about, um, why I like to mentor, etcetera. I am working on a book called The Joyful Actor: Mastering a Mindset, and it is about how to have an enjoyable and sustainable acting journey, which, sort of talks a lot about this whole having goals and timeframes and all of that.
Amazing. Well, we'll keep an eye out for it and we'll for
Yes,
sure
thank
plug it on
you.
the show. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Now, Lana, I interviewed Marshall over a year ago. She was like, you have to meet my mentor, Lana. You have to bring her on the show. And now I see why. Your Your journey is nothing short of inspiring, encouraging. Again, as somebody who sometimes feels like the clock is ticking, I read your story on your website and I was like, holy crap, this is exactly what I, and talk about that selfishness. Selfishly, this conversation has been very beneficial to me. And
Oh,
unselfishly, I hope that it's been equally as beneficial, if not more so, to everyone listening. Lana, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
oh, Hassiem, thank you so much. You're a delight. You're a great interviewer. I appreciate all of the questions you asked. It's nice to go down memory lane for sure.
All right, folks, that's part one. If you enjoyed this interview with Lana, then you'll love the recent conversation I had with actor George Bennett Watson, who's also someone who's making waves in his career a little bit later in life. So be sure to check that out. Thank you so much for tapping into this episode of The Actor's Instrument. We'll be back next Tuesday. Till next time, y'all. Peace.